This week, Kathy and I are in Prince George, British Columbia, and we're doing a marriage seminar. And while we were here, I met Ann Clausen. And she's one of the attendees, but she has a very interesting healing testimony that I really thought you'd be interested in hearing because it just really built my faith. So Ann, welcome to our video. It's great to have you. You now have an international audience wanting to hear what happened. So tell us, it was about your son, how he went to the YWAM, the Youth with a Mission base in Hawaii. So how old was he when he started this adventure?
He was 25 years old, just after he had rededicated his life to the Lord. Very, very passionate for God. And he decided to go and do his DTS in YWAM.
Okay. And so then tell us about the phone call. How long was he at the DTS? That's the Discipleship Training School. How long was he there before you got this phone call?
He was there for, I believe it was 2 months that he was into it already. And then he was a big boy, strong, heavy, like a bodybuilder. And he had, they decided to go wade in the fresh waters one day. He had a cut on his leg, and there he got in contact with a virus, a tropical virus called leptospirosis, and it got into his bloodstream. And within 8 days, all his muscles had seized up. He was like almost paralyzed, totally jaundiced, and it did not look good.
He was in ICU by this time?
Not at this time. No, he was still on campus. Mm-hmm. And then one day we get a call from the doctor saying that your son is very, very ill. And wasn't too long after that we got another call from a doctor from Hawaii saying your son is gravely ill. And then a third call from a doctor. They said we've air-vac'd him now to Honolulu and it's not looking good. So the fourth call we got, the doctor was saying he's in a coma. All his vital organs have shut down and it's looking very grim. And they said at that time, if you want to see him alive, we recommend you come within 12 hours.
Wow, 12 hours. And you're here in British Columbia.
We're here in
He's in Honolulu.
Right.
Wow. How did that make you feel?
That made us feel, well, my heart, we just came undone. But we have a strong faith, and we believed that God was going to do something. He's so sold out to the Lord. And we just believed that God wasn't finished with our son yet. But
now, you got a word from God right around that time.
Exactly, and a powerful word. Even though we had come undone and we faced the fact we might lose our son, but God gave us a word and he said, your son shall live and not die. And that was a word that carried us through, like all the way through the time that he was in the hospital. So here we get all packed up, all 8 or 9 of us. We fly down to Honolulu to be with our son, and we see him in this coma. This deep coma, and it's not looking good. So we watched him in that condition for 3 days, opened up, total life support, and just scary. Any mom's heart would break, but we stood on that word that God said, I'm not finished with your son yet. And he said, he shall live and not die. So on the 4th day, the doctor pulled us aside and said, we've done all we know to do, and he's not responding. All the vital organs he's not responding. And we said to the doctor this, thank you very much for what you've done, but we believe God is not done. So we went back into the room, and as we walk into the room, he's sitting up, and he's looking around, and he's saying, what are you all doing here?
So this is the same afternoon that they tell you there's nothing more they can do, so they're considering taking him off the machines.
And letting him go.
You go right from that meeting back into ICU, and he's sitting up.
5 minutes after that, back in ICU, and he's sitting up.
Wow. And he was trying to talk.
He was trying to talk, yes. So he was still hooked up, and he was still hooked up for a bit, and then they took him off of life support.
And what was the response of the doctors after they had just said there's nothing more we can do, they're going to have to let him go? You walk back into ICU, and he's sitting up.
They were astounded, and they said this is nothing short of a miracle. And we know a miracle
Could they
happened.
try to explain it, or they just
said we have no explanation for this. So we just told them this is our God. Jesus is our healer, and he's healed our son.
And so then how long was it that he was discharged?
2 weeks after that.
2 weeks. And then he came out of the hospital obviously walking.
He came out of the hospital walking, very gaunt, very weak, still very jaundiced, but he recovered quickly after that.
Astounding. Now, what message would you want to give to the people who are watching who are in hopeless situations and that they've been given a fatal diagnosis, or a relative's been given a fatal diagnosis, or they're up against an impossibility? What would you want to tell them?
I would say go to the cross, go to Jesus, and God in his grace, I mean, it doesn't always work out to our favor, but in our case it was so to our favor, and I know it is to many other people as well. But have faith in Jesus. By his stripes we are healed, and that God still does miracles. And that word kept us from the time we left home until we saw our son walking again. God said he will live and not die. And a word from God is all it takes. You've got all the arsenal, all the fighting power, if we have God's word. God's word works. It works.
What an amazing story that they were ready to take him off life support and then he sits up. So that's just amazing. So I just thought it would really encourage you, especially those of you who are struggling with impossible circumstances right now. So we want to encourage you. Ask Jesus, what is his word for you about your circumstance? So we just want to thank you for joining us. And if this is your first visit, you need to get my free self-assessment guide. And to do that, just subscribe to our weekly email newsletter by filling out the subscription form. And we'll talk to you again next week. This week, raise your expectation of what God can do in your life.
Amen.